My girlfriend's friends dared her to cheat just to see if I'd find out. They filmed the whole thing as a joke. When I discovered their group chat celebrating how gullible I was, I realized they had no idea who they were messing with. My name is Ryan, and I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. Real betrayal isn't just someone you love hurting you, it's discovering that your pain was designed as entertainment for people who saw your relationship as a game to be played for their amusement. My girlfriend Maya and I had been together for 2 years. We met in college during our junior year and instantly clicked. She was studying psychology while I was finishing my computer science degree. We were that couple everyone said was perfect together. She balanced my analytical nature with her emotional intelligence, and I provided the stability she needed to thrive. Maya was beautiful in an understated way, with dark hair, warm brown eyes, and a smile that could light up any room. But what I loved most about her was her loyalty. She'd defend me to anyone who criticized me, supported my career goals even when they required long hours, and made me feel like the most important person in her world. At least, that's what I believed. Maya had a tight group of friends from high school: Brianna, Ashley, and Chloe. They called themselves the Squad and had matching tattoos, group chats that never stopped buzzing, and the kind of intense friendship that seemed to have its own secret language. I'd always found their dynamic a bit intense, but Maya assured me they were just very close. They're like my sisters, she'd tell me whenever I mentioned feeling like an outsider around them. They've been there for me through everything. You'll understand their humor once you get to know them better. I tried to get to know them better. I invited them to my birthday party, included them in group activities, and genuinely attempted to build friendships with the people who were important to Maya. But there was always something off about how they treated our relationship. During group dinners, they'd make jokes about how domestic Maya had become since we started dating. They'd reminisce about her wild single days in front of me, sharing stories clearly designed to make me uncomfortable. When Maya and I would show affection, they'd roll their eyes and make gagging sounds like teenagers. "Don't mind them," Maya would say afterward. "They're just not used to seeing me in a serious relationship. They'll come around." But they never did. If anything, their behavior became more pointed over time. Brianna, who seemed to be the group's unofficial leader, had a particular talent for backhanded comments disguised as jokes. "Ryan, you're so lucky Maya settled down when she did," she'd say with a sweet smile. "She used to be such a heartbreaker. Remember that spring break in Miami, Maya? You were so wild." Ashley and Chloe would giggle knowingly while Maya would blush and change the subject. These comments always left me feeling unsettled, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. The first real red flag came during Maya's birthday party 6 months ago. Her friends had organized a girls' night out that started at our apartment with pre-drinks. I was helping serve cocktails when I overheard part of their conversation from the kitchen. "I still can't believe you're wasting your best years on someone so boring," Brianna was saying to Maya. "You could have anyone you want, and you choose the computer nerd who thinks a wild night is staying up past midnight playing video games." "Ryan isn't boring," Maya defended, though her voice lacked conviction. "He's stable and reliable. That's what I need right now." "Stable and reliable is what you settle for when you're 40, Ashley chimed in. "You're 24. You should be having adventures, making mistakes, living your life. Not playing house with someone who probably has your next 5 years planned in a spreadsheet." They all laughed at that, including Maya. I stood in the kitchen, frozen with hurt and embarrassment. Maya knew I'd been working on a 5-year plan for our future together, career goals, savings targets, and yes, a timeline for marriage and kids. I'd shared it with her because I thought we were building a life together. Hearing her laugh at something I'd shared in vulnerability stung more than her friend's mockery. I should have confronted Maya about what I'd overheard, but I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling. Instead, I tried harder to be spontaneous, to plan surprise dates and show Maya that I could be exciting too. My efforts seemed to work. Maya became more affectionate, more attentive, and started talking about our future with renewed enthusiasm. I thought we'd moved past whatever doubts her friends had planted in her mind. I was wrong. Maya wasn't falling more in love with me, she was feeling guilty about what she was planning to do. The betrayal happened on a Friday night in late October. Maya told me she was having a girls' night at Brianna's apartment, wine, movies, and catching up. It was a regular occurrence, so I didn't think anything of it. I was working late on a freelance project that night, trying to save money for an engagement ring I'd been secretly planning to buy. Around midnight, I decided to surprise Maya by picking up her favorite late-night snacks and dropping them off at Brianna's place. When I arrived at Brianna's apartment complex, Maya's car wasn't in the parking lot. I texted her to ask if she was still there, and she responded immediately, "Yes. Just watching movies. Love you." But her car wasn't there, and I could see through Brianna's ground floor window that the apartment was dark. Something was wrong. I drove around the area for a while, telling myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe they'd gone to a different location. Maybe Maya had ridden with someone else. Maybe I'd missed her car in the parking lot. But a gnawing feeling in my gut told me to dig deeper. Maya had shared her phone's location with me months earlier, a practical decision since we often met up after work or helped each other find parking in crowded areas. I'd never used it to check up on her, but that night, I opened the app. Her phone was at a bar called The Loft, about 20 minutes from Brianna's apartment. A bar she'd never mentioned, in a part of town we rarely visited. I sat in my car for 30 minutes, debating whether to drive to the loft or go home and pretend I'd never discovered the lie. The reasonable part of my brain told me that Maya was probably just avoiding drama. Maybe the girls had decided to go out and she didn't want me to worry about her drinking and driving. But something deeper, more instinctual, told me that this was bigger than a spontaneous change of plans. I drove to the loft. The bar was crowded for a Friday night, with a young professional crowd and loud music that made conversation difficult. I scanned the room looking for Maya, half hoping I wouldn't find her, half terrified of what I might discover. I found her in a corner booth, but she wasn't with her friends. She was with a man I'd never seen before, tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive-looking jacket. They were sitting close together, his arm around her shoulders, her hand resting on his thigh. As I watched, he leaned down and kissed her, and she kissed him back without hesitation. I stood frozen in the middle of the crowded bar, watching my girlfriend of 2 years make out with a stranger while her phone showed a location she'd lied about and claimed to be doing something completely different. But what made it worse was what I saw next. Brianna, Ashley, and Chloe were sitting at a table about 20 feet away, watching Maya and the stranger like they were at a movie theater. They had their phones out, clearly recording the interaction, and they were laughing and whispering to each other like they were watching the most entertaining show of their lives. This wasn't Maya meeting someone by chance. This wasn't a spontaneous moment of weakness. This was planned, orchestrated, and being documented by her best friends for their entertainment. I left the bar without confronting anyone. I needed to process what I'd seen and figure out how to handle it. Maya had betrayed me, but her friends had turned that betrayal into a spectacle. They were treating my relationship like a reality show where my pain was the punchline. I drove home and sat in our apartment, the apartment where Maya kept half her clothes, where we'd talked about our future, where I'd hidden the engagement ring I'd been planning to give her, and tried to understand what I'd witnessed. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, heading home now. Had so much fun with the girls. Love you. 20 minutes later, she walked through the door, perfectly composed, smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne but otherwise acting completely normal. How was your night? She asked, kissing me on the cheek like nothing had happened. It was fine, I managed. How was girls' night? Oh, you know how it is. We just talked and watched movies. Pretty boring, actually. She was lying so effortlessly that I almost wondered if I'd imagined what I'd seen at the bar. But I hadn't imagined anything. And I needed to know the full scope of what was happening. Over the next week, I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I became a detective in my own relationship. I used my technical skills to recover deleted messages, monitor social media activity, and piece together a timeline of Maya's deception. What I discovered was so much worse than a simple affair. Maya's friends had been pressuring her to cheat on me for months. The group chat between the four of them was like a psychological experiment in peer pressure and manipulation. The conversation had started in early September with Brianna posting a message, "Maya's turning into such a housewife. Remember when she was fun?" Ashley had responded, "I give it 6 months before she realizes she's wasting her youth on Captain Spreadsheet." But Chloe had taken it further, "We should prove to her that Ryan isn't as perfect as she thinks. I bet if she hooked up with someone else, he'd never even find out. He's too trusting and oblivious." That's when the dare began. "OMG yes," Brianna had written. "Maya, you should totally test Ryan's awareness levels. I bet you could have a whole affair and he'd be clueless. It would be like a social experiment." Maya had initially resisted. "That's awful. I love Ryan. I'm not going to cheat on him as a joke." But her friends were persistent, sophisticated, and ruthless in their manipulation. "It's not really cheating if it's just to prove a point," Ashley had argued. "And if Ryan doesn't find out, then what's the harm? It's like the tree falling in the forest. If no one hears it, did it really make a sound?" Chloe had added psychological pressure. "Come on, Maya. Don't you want to know if you still have game? Don't you wonder what you're missing by being tied down so young?" And Brianna had delivered the final manipulation. "If you don't do this, we'll know you've completely lost yourself in this relationship." The Maya we knew wouldn't be too scared to take a little risk. The pressure campaign had lasted weeks. Maya's friends had found potential targets for her to experiment with, coached her on how to flirt without getting caught, and gradually worn down her resistance with a combination of peer pressure, mockery, and challenges to her independence. The man at the bar was named Derek, and Maya had met him exactly as her friends had orchestrated. They'd found him on dating apps, created a fake scenario for Maya to accidentally encounter him, and then coached her through building a connection with him. But the most disturbing part was how they'd gamified the entire process. Maya's friends had created a point system for different levels of betrayal, points for flirting, more points for physical contact, maximum points for actual cheating. They'd turned my girlfriend's fidelity into a competition. Reading those messages, I realized that Maya hadn't just betrayed me, she'd been systematically manipulated into betraying me by people who found our relationship's destruction entertaining. However, I also saw that Maya had participated willingly once the process began. Her initial resistance had given way to excitement about the game. She'd started referring to me as the boyfriend in their chat, like I was an obstacle to be overcome rather than a person she claimed to love. The night I'd seen her at the bar was what they called level 5, actual physical cheating, worth maximum points in their twisted game. I can't believe I actually did it. Maya had texted afterward. Derek is so hot, and Ryan literally has no idea. You guys were right, he's completely